groups, but the valley, which is constituted, predominantly Hindu, Vaishnavite, Meitei groups, the northern part of Manipur hills, which has close relations with the Naga groups, and the southern part of Manipur and those around the periphery of the valley, which is the central middle valley where the Kukis inhabited. There is, of course, rivalry in terms of land, in terms of jobs, in terms of developmental largesses that comes, and competition that has come, and aspirations, ethnic aspirations that has come about. And of course, we cannot also undermine the insurgency that has been going on there, and how over a long period of time, before the colonial onset, Manipur was a kingdom in its own right. It was until the British came. In fact, Manipur had a very different historical trajectory from the rest of the country. Up until 1826, when the Treaty of Yangtze was signed between the Myanmar, the Burmese, and the British, history of Manipur was more associated with the Burmese processes rather than with the processes in South Asia. And that is how the Manipur became a part of the British kind of dispensation out of the first Anglo-Burmese war, and not of any other Battle of Palasi or the significant historical episodes that the rest of the country have gone through. What was primarily an ethnic relationship between different ethnic groups in that region became packaged into a caste hierarchy when the king of Manipur converted Manipur into a Hindu state in 1720s. And so what was a much more fluid movement of ethnicity and tribes around the power of the king, which was kind of a melting pot, suddenly became hierarchically divided into the Brahmins, which are mostly Indian Brahmins who have come to the king's court and have married Manipuri women. They become the Bamons of Manipur, in the highest hierarchy of the caste system. Those people who converted with the king into Hinduism, the loyalists, became the Kshatriyas. The people who oppose the conversion becomes kind of Sudra, and we don't have Vaishya in the Meitei kind of hierarchy, but it is perhaps the women of Manipur who controls the internal trade of Manipur has become some kind of a Vaishya in that context. That was the first kind of packaging of people into a hierarchy. Then came, with the coming of the British and what we call the Anglo-Manipuri War of 1891, the Christianity also spread in Manipur, and after that again, the converted Christians also see the non-converted and the Hindus as pagan. So in a way that created that division of the believers who are more closer to the God, and the non-believers who are away from the God, and pagans, and for those kind of worldview were imposed. The British elsewhere, like anywhere else, also divide the people as hill people and plain people, or the valley people, again, which was further accentuated, after we were merged with the Dominion of India in 1949. Otherwise, from 47 to 49, we had our own independent constitutional monarchy. And there again, not only the people, the British divide the people, but the new Indian laws divide the geography of Manipur as hills and valley, even though, and that's how it was very, very difficult have a clearer understanding, I mean, the incentive structure in which the state largesses are devolved to the people are fixed to this identity, so this identity becomes stronger and stronger. And just to I mean, I know I can explain it for a long time, but just remind me, how much time do I have? Sorry.
I think we'll make an exception with you. I think people need to understand Manipur,
Okay.
and you could take a little longer, please.
Thank you so much for your generosity. Yeah, so this was, and of course, as you know, the Nagas have come up with a self-determination movement as early as the 50s, and many of the hill tribes from Manipur, northern Manipur, have also galvanized into this Naga independence movement of short. And in the 90s, after the Cold War, the Nagas believed that they are going to get their independence very soon, like the republics in Eastern Europe and in Russia, and they have actually asked the Kukis, who came about 200 years ago, planted by the kings and the British, to leave the Naga ancestral domain. And that was at the core, the root of the Naga-Kuki conflict. And ever since then, the military establishment in the northeast have used these Kuki groups to as an apparatus, important apparatus to contain the Naga insurgency in the 90s. And the Kuki, similarly, this same group, and that is in a way the genesis of how the Kuki armed groups have come about. So we all talk about Kuki militancy, but if you look at it a little more carefully, Kuki militancy are also paid by the Union Home Ministry, and therefore it might be a slight misnomer. Kuki armed groups might be a more appropriate term, and similarly, this same group has been used to flush out the Meitei insurgents from the hills of Manipur in the beginning of the century. So there is a long-standing animosity between these groups because of the way in which the state have used one against the other to contain the uprisings that has come about. And Naga still cannot come out with a clear solution till date, and therefore it creates a very complicated situation. But the elephant in the room of today is the drug trade. Ever since insurgents are flushed out from the hills of Manipur, in the last 2 decades, we see astronomical rise of poppy cultivation in the hills of Manipur. According to ID's estimate, 50,000 crore annual turnover is the drug trade that we see in Manipur today. And Manipur's annual budget is hardly 37,000 crore. So we have a much bigger economy than the actual formal economy that kind of is there in Manipur. And if we don't understand how this is working and how this is playing into the whole political economy of Manipur, we are missing the elephant in the room. So one needs to understand that. And therefore, that is the ethnic rivalry, the dimension, and everybody gets a cut of this 50,000 crore, whether it is the government actor within Manipur and outside Manipur who are helping the government run, as well as many of the non-state actors who are of different political hues. That is, it would be wrong to assume that this 50,000 crore economy doesn't affect them. That is the ethnic rivalry. The second, which is perhaps much more important for today's discussion, is the rise of the right-wing ideology and the way in which organically evolved civil societies are suppressed. We all know how it is being suppressed by clipping the FCRA in the rest of the country, but that is first step. The second step will be tax, and then enforcement directorate, and perhaps the last point is application of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. But if you look at the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and how it plays out in the whole country, even before the coming of the Vajpayee government here, you will see that Manipur, which is, if you look at the population, is 0.4% of India's population. We are not 1%, we are not even 0.5% of the whole country. But Manipur's share of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act DTNU, any guess? 64% of India's unlawful activities prevention DTNU was in Manipur, even before the coming of the BJP government. So what we are seeing from, if we look at from Manipur's perspective, what we are seeing today in this country is not new. It is rather the state of exceptions that we have always suffered from has now become the rule for the whole country. And therefore, it is, this manifestation of state and its repressive apparatus have been extremely strong in Manipur and of course other similar situations like Kashmir and other things. And the way in which this vacuum that is created by subjugating the civil society is now constantly being filled by the vigilante groups. It may be RSS and Bajrang Dal here, but there it's slightly different names. I don't want to name the names, it is everywhere. People who are supported by the state, funded by the state, and enjoy impunity to cause violence without any consequences. And these groups have taken over this space, and it is like a dry straw. And any drop of match box is enough to burn without any resistance. In 2001, the Naga Meitei also have a tension around Naga Lim demand. But there the civil society went out and said, what we are opposing is not the Naga people, but the policy of the government. Don't touch the Naga, was the message from the civil society. This time round, there was no civil society present. Only the vigilante groups were on the forefront, and they were targeting houses after houses, churches after churches, and everything got burned in just a matter of 2 or 3 days, and the depth of the hatred all of a sudden become so big that now we are in a virtual partition between the Kuki on the one side, the Meitei on the other side, so we are going through perhaps the most difficult phase in Manipur's history. But what is very interesting is if you do a simple conflict map of who are the actors and what are their roles, simple analysis will show that the Meiteis and the Kukis are fighting. If you speak at the Kuki to the Kukis, they will say the Manipur police commandos are supporting the Meiteis. If you speak at the Meitei, they will say the Assam Rifles, with which they have a long 40 years of history of counterinsurgency and perhaps sharing the huge economy that has come out from the poppy cultivation. They say, here is a situation where if you take this as a fact, and I think there are some element of truth in that, you have a situation where the Manipur police is supporting one group, the Assam, the central paramilitary forces supporting one group, and the two bosses of the Honorable Chief Minister of Manipur and Honorable Home Minister of India are the best of friends who are helping each other, protecting each other under any circumstances. And the people who are drawing power from them are killing in hundreds. Tens of thousands are homeless today. And yet, the relationship between the two power centers are so congenial that there is no president's rule, there is no change of leadership in Manipur, and of course, our Honorable Chief Minister is absolutely loyal to our Honorable Home Minister. So this is the dynamics that we are playing out. The third dimension, which I think is also very important for us, is the whole geopolitical dimension of this conflict. And I think this is perhaps the most important reason why, for the first time, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, in his media statement in Geneva on the 24th of May, have mentioned Manipur's situation in par with what is happening in Syria, in par with what is happening in Afghanistan and elsewhere in the country. And that is because Manipur is in a highly sensitive geopolitical location. And what we are seeing is also, with the whole dislocation in Myanmar, the strongest resistance to the Myanmar Tatmadaw is coming from Chin state and Saigon division, which is close to India. And there is a very strong mobilization of Chin, Mizo, Kuki, ethno-nationalist mobilization. More than 35,000 people are registered in Mizoram as Chin refugees. But mind you, not many people know this, but similar mobilization is also happening in Bangladesh. And there is at least 8,000 refugees, Chin refugees, coming into Mizoram from Bangladesh. And Mizoram is going for poll in November. The level of mobilization of the persecuted ethnic brothers from other states is huge. And the profile of weaponry that is used in Manipur's theater today is not conventional anymore. Large-scale use of sniper, which was never found in any of the insurgency situation earlier, is happening, and the interconnection between the rebels in Arakan area, the Chin state, I think it's quite obvious that it is going to, the possibility of this kind of instability becoming a regional problem, not just in India, but of course across the region, is very, very real. And in Strasbourg, in European Parliament, on Wednesday, there's going to be a resolution on Manipur because of this nature. Unfortunately, of course, our Honorable Prime Minister is yet to have opened his mouth on this, whereas the US government is ready to come and help India if it is asked for. And of course, there are neighbors who might not ask for permission from India to come and interfere in these situations. I don't want to speak further and put myself and the rest of the panelists in trouble, but Manipur is in a real shit. Thank you very much.